Hi, my name is Peter Cito, and I'm a professor of social work in the Grace Abbott School of Social Work at UNO.
My name is Shelly Brown. I teach 5th and 6th grade science at St. James Seton here in Omaha, and I have been lucky enough to take part in multiple service learning projects with the Service Learning Academy at UNO.
And I'd like to talk about 3 things to consider when you're preparing a service learning project.
Well, the first thing I thought about is communication, and you are in luck because the Service Learning Academy is awesome at communication. When you first meet with the nonprofit and the professor you're going to work with, there's lots of really big ideas, big projects, lots of big plans. What the Service Learning Academy helps is take those big plans and make them into something concrete. They also help as you continue going along in your project, as things change. They help you make those connections and help you figure out how to keep that project moving forward. So your graduate assistant will be fabulous to help with that.
First thing is to consider what learning objective or concept you have that exists in the real world. So for example, I taught a course on mental health and I wanted students to experience inpatient psychiatric settings. So I set up a service learning project that they would go into an inpatient psychiatric setting. The second thing to consider is to have
The second thing that I think you need, which you already have, is your strength as a teacher in knowing your students. So your UNO professor is going to be an amazing expert on the material. However, you are the expert in your students, and you're the expert in your students on how to get them excited about the project. You're the expert in how to teach them the concepts and how to take the information from the UNO professor and his or her students and make that relevant and interesting and understandable to your students. You are the one who can figure out how to take your standards and have them fit what your project is. So you want to make sure that you are aware of all the strengths that you have as a teacher in relating to your students and being an expert in your students.
The second thing to consider is to have really good working relationships with the people you're involved with at the agency. And so there you need to plan, spend some time talking, sharing, inviting them to class, having them speak while your students are at the site. So that way you make it more real and make it as authentic as possible. The third
The last thing that I can think of that you need for a successful service learning project is to be adaptable. Okay, so just as this guy has made our family much more adaptable here at home, you are going to need to be adaptable as you go through your project. So all kinds of things are going to happen when you do your project, okay? I've had everything happen from getting on the bus and having it full of bees and having a kid get stung to getting to our project and finding out that we didn't have the objects available that the students were going to study that we planned on studying, to not having enough time when you actually begin your project to get it all done. And a good reminder there for me is always that it's not necessarily just the product, it's the journey and it's the experience you have as your kids keep going. So just remember to enjoy the entire ride and you'll have a great project. And finally, the last thing that I would say is really important to keep in mind to have a successful project is to be adaptable. As you know, as a teacher, we always have to adapt, right? We just figured that out at the end of last year. So you can adapt to anything, and that's a really good thing to remember as you go through your project. My projects never turn out exactly how we planned in the beginning. Each of our events never turn out exactly how we've planned them. And so it's really important to remember that it is the journey that matters, and you're teaching your kids not just how to help that nonprofit with that specific product, but how to stick with a task, how to keep going even when it's tough, how to make the best out of a situation that didn't turn out like you planned. So when you keep...
The third thing to consider would be, I call a plan B. or plan C. In other words, to have a contingency plan if things don't work out the way you want to, because students' schedules, mishaps, unexpected things will happen, and it's important for you to have alternative plans for your service learning project to be very successful.
So when you keep all that in mind, you can enjoy the journey, and good luck on your